Get a load of this. Yeah, it's fully automatic grenade launcher. $12 million damage. Aww. That was fun while it lasted. Is Trinity's rework enough? We just looked at Nyx's rework, which was way more impressive than most of us thought, and Trinity also got one in the same update. This is mostly quality of life changes, but there are some really big buffs that she did get that are worth talking about, and overall I think she feels much better as a Warframe. The reason Trinity got a rework is because her kit has kind of just not aged well with the meta of the game. As we know, Warframe is mainly focused around damage nowadays and nuking large rooms. Trinity just doesn't have this to offer. And over the years, Warframes that have come out, such as, Wisp for example, have been able to give the similar levels of heals that Trinity has in the support area, but also do large amounts of damage. And the question is, can Trinity keep up with those frames now in the support category, even though she still doesn't really have damage to offer? Let's cover her abilities and the changes first, then take a look at some builds and discuss on whether I think Trinity is really that much better now. First off, Trinity's new passive. Her and her allies will get bonus HP depending on her energy max. So if you're using something like a Prime Flow, you and your teammates will have more HP. And you can of course scale this with Archon shards and other factors. And there's a new arcane that came out that also, I believe, gives you bonus strength based on your total HP. It's just a new arcane that synergizes really well with her, so that would be worth looking into for this passive. To quickly gloss over two changes that have been added to all of her kit, you can now cast all of her abilities while moving, and they have increased duration. In my opinion, these are the best buffs that Trinity has received. She gets niche ones here and there for her other skills, but across the board, adding this quality of life makes Trinity feel way nicer to play, and it was immediately noticeable when I tried her. Not having to run something like narrow-minded on your builds anymore because duration is much easier to handle means that we can build for better range overall, and the casting changes so I can recast my 3 and such, and also just roll around and move and avoid damage whilst casting. It feels so good. So the individual ability changes. Her first ability can now save your teammates if they're within range and they die. It's basically kind of like a Phoenix Renewal, just a second life, and it has good synergy with your 2 because you can cast Energy Vampire on the enemy that is invincible, so it'll just go for the whole duration. This ability will also heal allies of course, especially when they shoot it. The problem is that compared to the rest of her kit, it almost has no place. Trinity already has so much team support to offer that just adding another layer of heals or survivability for your squad feels kind of redundant when she needs to be doing something else. For example, Blessing and Link make her extremely tanky and also keeps her teammates alive, and they have permanent energy, and you can throw on the Augment for her Energy Vampire, which means they're going to be getting overshields at the same time. I know a bunch of the Trinity mains are going to complain that I'm not giving this ability enough credit. The problem is her kit is already so strong on survivability and support, it just seems like a missed opportunity to do something different. Obviously her 2 Energy Vampire is way nicer with the changes, being able to now build for duration and actually gain from it. Of course, before this update, if you wanted to build for Energy Vampire, you would go with low duration because the pulses of energy would get off extremely quickly, but now if you build for high duration, you gain the benefit of the pulses going off for longer over a longer duration. And the casting animation is just perfect. I don't have to worry about being frozen in place anymore. This is way better. Are you there? If you liked the video so far, or you've liked any of the previous videos on the channel, please feel free to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Leaving a like on the video also helps. I would absolutely love to hit 10k subs early next year. I appreciate you guys for all the support. If not, then no worries. Back to the video. Her third ability did actually receive some improvements that I quite enjoy, but I still don't know if it's enough. From being able to move while casting and increasing the duration, it's some good changes overall, but the fact you can recast it is also really nice. And now your power strength affects how many enemies it will affect, so basically how many cords will go out from you and attach to other enemies. My issue with this ability has always been the same, is that I don't really think it's that useful outside of its augment. You're basically just giving out damage reduction to yourself to stack with your 4. The damage isn't really that good, but the augment strips enemies armor. With around 250 power strength, you can have about 7 of these tendrils going out, so 7 enemies being armor stripped, and of course you can build for better range now, which is really nice by the way, because of course we don't need narrow-minded anymore. It's a nice change, more enemies armor stripped, but it's still really not as many as you'd want, especially compared to other abilities, and the fact that it needs the augment. This is just a damage reduction skill, to be honest. I just really wish it had some damage in her kit to accompany it. It doesn't even have to be nuking. I don't want this frame turning into something that she's not meant to be. It's just a lot of her kit does the same thing, such as her 4th ability Blessing, which also gives a bunch of damage reduction. Full heals you and your teammates within range, giving you 75% damage reduction for its duration. Adds way more duration now, which is really enjoyable, and they did fix an issue where in the casting animation sometimes the damage reduction would disappear, so that's been fixed, so you're way more safe now. And as you can see across the whole kit, it's mostly just quality of life changes. Now up until this point in the video, most Trinity players are probably thinking I'm sounding extremely negative and condescending towards this frame. And I'll say this, I enjoy this frame so much more now. I don't even think the old version is comparable purely based on how she feels. Old Trinity felt old, very clunky, not fun to play, animations hard to build for, really tight builds due to the duration problem. Now you can build way more flexible, and you can move around the map more flexible. Okay, before we get into the build, I do want to address something that has almost bothered me more on Trinity than it does on Nyx, and that is the Augment issue. I always have a gripe with frames that are literally so dependent on band-aid augments. I don't know why, it just annoys me so much. The fact that I have to give up mod slots for necessary mods just to make abilities actually useful really annoys me, but even though Nyx and Trinity after the reworks both really want at least 2 augments in their kit, it for some reason feels a lot more strict on how you can build. On Nyx, she has plenty of good augments. I feel like her Psychic Bolt's augment is borderline a must-have if you're going to keep that ability as your primary form of armor strip, and the fact that it's way better now, so you should be using it anyway. The augment just gives you more projectiles. In my opinion, this is a stupid augment and should be integrated into a base kit. Just up the limit and make this something new. It's not creative at all. That feels like a must-have. An almost must-have augment is the one for a mind control, which makes it do 1000% more damage and gives it a speed bonus. This isn't a must-have because the ability is solid on its own and can do enough damage versus enemies that you armor strip, but it is very useful and would be included in most builds. Assimilate is optional, and so is Chaos Sphere. On Trinity, however, there are 3 augments that honestly feel like must-haves across the board. The augment for an energy vampire, giving you shields and overshields from the pulses, is extremely useful as it can replace a shield mod and it helps out your team. Just makes the ability way more versatile. In my opinion, it's either going for this or maybe Arcane Aegis or Prime Redirection. The augment for her Blessing is borderline a must-have, purely based on what Trinity lacks in her kit, which is really solid damage. This is a band-aid augment, but at the same time, this is something that is making me enjoy this character way more, and it's one of the best things I have to say about this character, but it has its problems. Being able to get up to 350% critical chance bonus on your primaries and secondaries is amazing, and does give Trinity the damage she needs to be able to function as a support tank. Once you get this buff up, she feels incredible, like just running around immortal for majority of the content in the game, plenty of ways to save her and her teammates. Great sustainability, and just having red crits is wonderful, but it feels like I must have in the kit once again. And I have a massive gripe with this augment, is that it's kind of a pain in the ass to set up. In order to get that bonus crit, you do have to take health damage, or your allies do, because you have to heal health with Blessing. This doesn't work on shields, and you can't just spam Blessing and get this buff up. You or your teammates have to take HP damage, and at certain levels this just isn't going to work, because remember, Blessing, when it's active, gives damage reduction. This crit buff lasts longer than Blessing, which is really good, but in order to build that up and recast and keep the crit buff escalating, you have to take damage, and the percentage in which you heal will be added to your crit chance, and it will refresh the duration of the buff. But doing this safely and efficiently is borderline impossible at certain levels. Like, I want to take HP damage because my teammates are too busy with their 30,000 overguard and shield gate setups not taking HP damage, because you know, the year is almost 2025. So I have to stand there and take HP damage. But what if the enemies are, you know, still path level, and all of a sudden I'm getting one shot by the butcher or the crewman that is closest to me when I'm just trying to take, let's say, at least 400 HP damage to get the biggest crit buff I can without dying. You can synergize this with your first ability, but you're just going to be getting healed. So if you let the damage reduction expire of your ult, and then leave the buff there and wait to take damage, you run the risk of just outright dying. And the same thing can be said for even when it's active, at least if the enemy's a higher level. Hey, I healed Big Boy. I healed my cat. I gave him 400 HP right there. Or 300 maybe. Yeah, it's 300. I got 30 bonus crit. Let's go, dude! It took so long. That's the first time I gained crit naturally. If you don't build this up at the start of the mission by forcibly making yourself take damage, you're going to have a tough time building it up, especially if you run into a nullifier, because it will just completely reset it and you have to recharge. In my opinion, the best way around this is to use combat discipline. This is going to really slowly, gradually build up your crit chance over time, because you're going to be, killing enemies, losing a tiny bit of HP, and then using blessing on that to gain that small percentage of crit chance. This augment is a pain in the ass to build up crit chance wise, unless you get lucky, but once you get that crit chance built up in an endless mission, it's happy days. And then finally, another must have, which this augment in my opinion, you should never not be using this on Trinity unless you want to replace her third for whatever reason. Abating Link gives your Link armor reduction and full strip. This is much better now due to the fact that power strength now increases the amount of links we have. 300% power strength, you can get up to 9 links, which isn't actually that bad. But why is this not a part of her base kit? Especially considering the damage that Link puts out based on enemies' level and how much damage they're doing to you and redirecting. And if they're doing it whilst abating Link is on when they have no armor, it still doesn't do enough damage to kill them. But you want the armor strip because it's really useful, and this is just a must-have augment on a build. So that's 3 augments where normally you're going to want at least 2 of them at any given time, regardless of whether or not you're using Helminth. And speaking of Helminth, this is the frame I have found most difficult finding a perfect Helminth setup for. Something that, synergizes with her kit in a way that's truly special to take her to another level. And yes, I have tried Tesla Nervos with Tesla Bank augment on her because, she strips armor. It just doesn't have good enough synergy with her. There's no real synergy there, it's just, some enemies are stripped and Tesla Nervos works at chaining the damage to them. I then tried Mind Control to see if Energy Vampire could be cast on a Mind Control target to charge up its damage to an astronomical amount. Doesn't work, you can't cast it on, before, or after in order to charge the damage, really disappointing. I also tried Energy Vampire with its scaling damage on Mark for Death and it just wasn't good enough. And to be honest, I'm realizing that the best thing you could probably do to Trinity as a final change is to actually just increase the damage of her Link. By increasing the damage of Link, which you can do with Raw, but it's simply not enough, I think it would give her the close range damage buff that she wants, especially when combined with her augment. And it's not going to be a crazy room nuke thing which would be off brand for her, but having her be able to shred anything that gets close seems really cool, and it's quite satisfying when enemies, dump truck their whole mag into you and set on fire, but it's just not strong enough. Anywho, I've done plenty of ranting about how annoying she is to build, requires borderline 3 augments, and Helminth is a pain in the arse on her. Despite this, I've really been enjoying her. I don't know bro, it's just something about the quality of life changes, being able to run around, armor strip, sustain myself super easy with my second ability, keep my teammates alive, just be a walking tank that links to enemies, and the ult augment makes her a really good weapons platform. She's basically just a crit buffing tank that keeps her team alive, which is quite a bit better than what she once was. As of right now, as I said, I haven't really found a Helminth setup that I think is particularly special or worth showing, so I'm going to show off a build in which I use her base kit. Some worthy interactions to note. You can use your Energy Vampire on enemies that are caught in your first. Casting Energy Vampire and then your first is way more reliable it seems. And your links from your 3 can also link to your 1, and because of the damage redirection, it will heal you. I do really like stacking her augments because to me they feel really necessary, but I think the biggest optional one here would be for the overshields with her augment for Energy Vampire. I think I might prefer just running redirection over it, but if you want to support your team with overshields, it's the better option. And of course, Aegis is really strong for keeping you alive, which is why I used it. I know people are going to be yelling at me like, oh, the reason why you can't take damage is because you're using Aegis, but like, bro, of course I'd want to use Aegis. She's a way better shield tank than she is a health tank, and she's damage reduction based, so she's only going to scale so far, but if I have Aegis in there, it's going to give me way more survivability for higher level. But of course, it comes with the caveat of making it harder to take HP based damage to charge the 4th augment. So this one's really optional. And because I'm taking damage all the time with no combat discipline, Arcane Avenger is welcome. She doesn't need too much duration anymore, although I have offset some of the duration loss from Transient with 2 red Archon shards. These aren't super necessary considering her sustainability now. The reason why I've gone for so much strength is purely for her third. Having as many tendrils go out as possible so I strip 9 enemies at once, it feels a lot more comfortable, and in my opinion there shouldn't be that low of a cap on this ability anyway, because Terrify literally exists, like come on now. So the final verdict. I know I've done a lot of talking about my gripes with the rework and the frame, but the reality is I'm currently really enjoying Trinity as much as I did Nyx. It's just I feel like there were some missed opportunities with the rework. It's very basic stuff, a lot of just quality of life, and it's like they couldn't figure out what to do. But to me, it's blatantly obvious. If you want to go for a damage option on her in a rework format, just boost her damage on her third. This ability has pitiful range anyway, so I don't think it would be a problem. But having it shred enemies, kind of like, the way Ureli's blades would do, at least when they get close, seems like it would be a fun option. And right now it just doesn't do enough damage. For a frame that isn't really my playstyle, I enjoy her much more now. The quality of life is huge, being able to build more versatile, not require as much duration, being able to move around the map, and cast my abilities. And I absolutely love the new proto skin she has. Lady looks fucking badass and has the absolute best emote available in my opinion. So yeah, I'm going to be playing her a lot more, but I don't think it's quite as good as Nyx's rework, and maybe could do with a couple more touch-ups. However, I would recommend giving her a go again. She feels like a modern day Warframe, so much less clunky, and it goes a long way into the enjoyment. Also, let me know if you guys find any super awesome Helminth combos. I've never struggled to find a Helminth combo so bad on a frame before, and it's kind of annoying me because I think that's where a lot of the fun in this game comes from nowadays. And before I leave, thank you guys so much for the support on the previous video, it means the world to me. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave it a like and subscribe, especially if you want to see more of these videos. I appreciate you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.